The applause died in an instant. A crystal champagne glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered across the marble floor, but nobody even looked down. Every pair of eyes remained fixed on the enormous screen dominating the banquet hall. Michael stood frozen beside the stage, the remote still in his hand, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. There, displayed before 200 guests celebrating his 10th wedding anniversary with Emily, was a grainy security-style recording that should never have existed. The timestamp showed nearly 4 years earlier. Emily, elegant in a dark coat and oversized sunglasses, entered the lobby of an expensive hotel and smiled warmly at a man no one recognized. He took her hand naturally, as if they had done this countless times before, and together they disappeared into an elevator. The clip ended abruptly, replaced by a black screen. The musicians stopped playing. Conversations evaporated. Emily's face drained of color as relatives, business associates, and lifelong friends slowly turned toward her. She forced an uneasy laugh and whispered that it had to be some misunderstanding, perhaps a business meeting or an editing mistake. Michael wanted desperately to believe her. After all, he had spent months preparing this surprise video, digging through forgotten cloud backups, family archives, and old cameras to celebrate the life they had built together. But as silence consumed the room, something deep inside him warned that the accidental clip had revealed only the smallest corner of a devastating truth. The days that followed became an exercise in quiet suspicion. Michael never confronted Emily, choosing instead to observe her with the patience of an investigator rather than the anger of a betrayed husband. He replayed the mysterious hotel footage repeatedly, noticing tiny details he had missed before, the familiarity of their body language, the expensive watch on the stranger's wrist, and Emily's unmistakable smile, one he had not seen directed at him in years. He began reviewing financial statements from their household accounts under the pretense of tax preparation. Several unexplained transfers appeared, each routed through shell consulting firms before vanishing into accounts connected to luxury properties and travel agencies. Curious, he restored deleted backups from an old laptop and discovered encrypted message notifications. Though many conversations had been erased, fragments survived, inside jokes, secret meeting schedules, references to anniversaries that clearly were not his own, and promises about when everything finally belongs to us. The evidence was unsettling but incomplete. Friends insisted he was overthinking a coincidence, and Emily remained calm, affectionate, and perfectly composed. Yet every recovered file raised new questions. Then Michael tracked down the hotel's public event records and discovered that the mysterious visitor frequently attended exclusive investor conferences sponsored by one of the country's wealthiest entrepreneurs. The stranger had a name, Victor Langford, a businessman celebrated in magazines for his financial genius but quietly rumored to destroy competitors through manipulation and intimidation. Suddenly the accidental video seemed less like evidence of infidelity and more like the first clue in an elaborate conspiracy. Michael expanded his investigation in secret. Hiring forensic accountants through trusted legal advisors, he traced hidden transactions stretching back almost 4 years. The pattern was undeniable. Emily and Victor had maintained a carefully concealed relationship while gradually positioning themselves to seize control of Michael's successful technology company. Draft contracts stored in forgotten email archives contained forged signatures almost identical to his own. Fake board resolutions appointed proxy directors who answered to offshore entities linked to Victor's investment empire. A private investigator photographed the pair meeting regularly under assumed names in cities hundreds of miles apart. The emotional pain of discovering the affair was immense, but the deeper betrayal emerged from thousands of recovered messages discussing Michael not as a husband but as an obstacle. They mocked his trust, calculated the ideal timing for transferring ownership, and debated whether divorce or bankruptcy would make him surrender more quickly. Emily had not merely fallen in love with another man, she had become an active participant in dismantling everything Michael had spent decades building. Reading the messages late one night, Michael reached a line that stole the air from his lungs. Once the company is ours, he'll never know what happened until it's too late. He closed the laptop and stared into the darkness, mourning not only his marriage but the memory of the woman he thought he knew. Grief slowly transformed into resolve. If they had planned every move with patience and precision, he would answer with patience and precision of his own. Months later, Emily believed reconciliation was finally possible. Michael appeared calmer, invited her to counseling sessions, spoke kindly in public, and even suggested hosting an intimate dinner to celebrate a fresh beginning. She accepted eagerly, convinced he had abandoned his suspicions. On the evening of the gathering, luxury cars lined the entrance of an exclusive private estate where candlelight illuminated polished tables and expensive floral arrangements. Emily entered smiling, expecting close family and trusted friends. Instead, she found attorneys seated beside forensic auditors, financial investigators organizing thick binders of documents, and uniformed police officers quietly waiting near the walls. Victor arrived minutes later after receiving a separate invitation promising investment negotiations. The atmosphere shifted immediately. Michael rose from his seat and calmly distributed evidence folders to every official present. Bank transfers, surveillance photographs, recovered messages, forged contracts, witness statements, digital forensics reports, and authenticated signatures formed an overwhelming timeline impossible to dispute. Emily attempted to deny everything, claiming manipulation and fabrication, but the investigators produced original metadata from cloud archives proving authenticity. Victor, realizing the mountain of evidence could destroy him, abandoned every promise of loyalty. Facing potential criminal liability, he immediately blamed Emily for initiating the scheme and volunteered his communications in exchange for cooperation. Watching her supposed partner distance himself within minutes was perhaps the cruelest irony of all. The alliance built on deception collapsed under the weight of documented truth before dessert was ever served. The legal proceedings that followed unraveled the conspiracy completely. Courts froze fraudulent transfers before ownership of Michael's company could change hands, while financial authorities dismantled the network of forged entities designed to conceal the theft. Shareholders who once doubted Michael publicly rallied behind him after reviewing the evidence, restoring confidence in the business and exposing the attempted takeover. Emily's reputation deteriorated almost overnight as headlines described the failed fraud scheme and the affair that had ignited public fascination months earlier. On the day judgment was entered, cameras crowded outside the courthouse. Emily emerged alone, her expression hollow, abandoned by the businessman who had promised her wealth and security. Victor departed separately under legal supervision, his own empire fractured by investigations triggered through Michael's evidence. Across the street, Michael stood quietly with the employees whose livelihoods had depended on saving the company. He watched without celebration as Emily walked toward an uncertain future, carrying nothing except the consequences of choices she had hidden for years. The surprise anniversary video intended to honor love had instead uncovered betrayal, greed, and calculated deception. Yet in exposing the truth, it also preserved everything Michael had worked to build. As reporters shouted questions behind him, he turned away from the chaos and stepped toward a future no longer defined by lies, leaving the screen that had shattered his marriage behind forever. If this story kept you guessing until the very end, don't let it be the last one you watch. Subscribe now and join us for more dark betrayals, shocking twists, hidden secrets, and unforgettable stories where nothing is ever as it seems. Leave a comment telling us what you would have done in Michael's place, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next mystery. Until next time, trust carefully, because the truth often hides in plain sight.